With their relatively short time in Formula One as an independent team, the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team has made a huge impact on the sport, breaking records and dominating the sport for an entire era of technical regulations. Let's explore the history of Mercedes in Formula One. In 1954, Mercedes joined the 8th season of the FIA's Formula One Championship. Mercedes, or Daimler-Benz AG as it was called then, but I'll refer to them as Mercedes for this video, had been building an absolute beast, the W196, to compete. Argentinian Juanmanuelfangio, who was driving for Maserati at the time, had promised to drive for Mercedes when the new car was finished, and after 4 Grand Prix, Fangio drove the W196 for the French Grand Prix, and won the race with the other Mercedes driver, German Karl Kling, coming second. Fangio went on to score points in the next 5 races, with 3 wins, 1 third place, and 1 fourth place, winning the championship. Mercedes signed Brit Stirling Moss to their team in 1955. Moss and Fangio dominated the season again with the W196. During the 6-race season, not including the Indianapolis 500, Fangio won 4 races, came second once, and had 1 retirement. While Moss won his home Grand Prix at Aintree, had 2 second places, 1 fourth place, 1 ninth place, and 1 retirement, coming second in the championship, 17 points behind Fangio. You might be wondering why I said Mercedes' short time in Formula One at the beginning of the video, and then proceed to talk about its history starting in the 1950s. Well, 1955 was a dark year for motorsport. On the 11th of June 1955, the 24-hour endurance race of Le Mans was held, which is till this day the deadliest motorsport event in history. The disaster started when Mike Hawthorne, who was driving for Jaguar, signaled to the drivers behind him that he was going into the pits. The brake discs of Hawthorne's Jaguar were strong, and he braked a lot faster than Austin Healey driver Lance Macklin anticipated, and Macklin had to maneuver the car quickly so as to not ram into Hawthorne from the back. But from the back of Macklin again came a much faster Pierre Levegh in the Mercedes-Benz 3000 SLR. Levegh drove into the left rear of Macklin, and as a result, the car catapulted into the air and over the protective barriers at a speed of approximately 200 kph. While crashing into the spectator area, the car nearly disintegrated and debris was flying everywhere. Levegh was killed, along with 84 spectators, and over 170 injured. After this disaster, motor racing was banned in several countries, including Switzerland, France, Spain, and West Germany. Because of the ban, the Formula One season was cut short, which handed the championship to Fangio, but Mercedes withdrew from motorsport as a whole until 1989 and would not come back as a constructor in Formula One until 2010. Mercedes struck a deal with Sauber in 1994 and provided them with engines. A year later, they switched to McLaren, and if you want to see how that went, please check out my McLaren video. Since 1994, Mercedes has provided engines to many teams and still continues to do so. In 2023, they supply engines to 4 out of the 10 teams on the grid. Mercedes bought the 2009 championship-winning team, brawngp, who they had supplied engines to, ahead of the 2010 season. Striking a deal with Petronas, the team changed to Mercedes GP Petronas Formula One team. Mastermind Rossbrawn continued as team principal. This caught the attention of Formula One legend Michael Schumacher, who had previously worked with Brawn during Ferrari's glory days in the early 2000s. 7-time championship winner Schumacher had retired after the 2006 season, but came out of retirement for the 2010 season to race for Mercedes. Williams driver Nico Rosberg, son of 1982 champion Keke Rosberg, joined in and drove alongside Schumacher. 2010 was not a terrible start for Mercedes, with Rosberg scoring 3 podiums, finishing in the points on a regular basis. It was a bit trickier for Schumacher though, who had a turbulent comeback. Mercedes landed 4th in the constructors behind Ferrari. The 2011 season was a bit more disappointing for the team, with both Schumacher and Rosberg struggling with the car, both of them ending up having to retire from the opening race in Australia. Schumacher even failing to get into Q3 during qualifying on multiple occasions. This was definitely a season to forget for the team. No wins, podiums, or poles. but managed to finish 4th again in the championship standings, with albeit less points than the year prior. Nowhere near the top team of Red Bull. And if you're interested in that, go watch my video about the Red Bull team if you want to learn more about their dominance during the early 2010s. For the 2012 season, the Mercedes F1 W03 had a radical rear wing concept, which resulted in teams like Red Bull and Lotus filing a formal protest against the design, but the efforts were rejected by the FIA and accepted the rear wing as a fair interpretation of the regulations. Some highlights of this season included, during the 3rd round in China, Rosberg claimed the team's first pole and win since Fangio in 1955. The upgrade, dubbed the double DRS system, worked really well there. Schumacher claimed pole during qualifying in Monaco, but due to a penalty handed to Schumacher after a crash with Bruno Senna during the Spanish Grand Prix, he was relegated to 6th. Rosberg finished the season with 1 pole, 1 win, and 1 second place. Schumacher with 1 podium during the European Grand Prix, securing a 3rd place. The podium celebration was quite emotional, with Alonso winning for Ferrari, Raikkonen finishing 2nd, who won a championship previously with Ferrari in 2007, and Schumacher in 3rd, who famously won 5 consecutive championships with Ferrari during the early 2000s. This would be, unfortunately, Schumacher's last podium in Formula 1. And the stats did not look too good for Schumacher at the end of the 2012 season, retiring from 7 out of 20 races and struggled to score points consistently. Mercedes dropped down to 5th in the Constructors' Championship, behind Lotus. Schumacher announced his retirement at the end of the year, but this time for good. In September, it was announced that McLaren champion Lewis Hamilton would join the team and drive alongside Rosberg. In January 2013, Austrian Totowolff took on the role of executive director of the team and acquired 30% of Mercedes-Benz Grand Prix Ltd, with 10% being owned by 3-time world champion Niki Lauda, who then was non-executive chairman of mercedesamg Petronas Motorsport. Lauda had a big part in signing Hamilton to the team. Hamilton and Rosberg had raced together in karting and had known each other for many years, forming a very close relationship. Highlights of this season included 1 win, 5 podiums, and 5 poles for Hamilton, finishing 4th in the drivers' standings, and Rosberg with 2 wins, 4 podiums, and 3 poles, ending up 6th in the standings. Mercedes an impressive 2nd in the constructors, only behind the ridiculously dominant Red Bulls. 2014 and new regulations. And man, did Mercedes get them right. The turbo hybrid era is now almost synonymous to Mercedes in F1. After 4 consecutive constructor and driver titles for Red Bull, Mercedes started off the season with Hamilton taking pole in Australia, but Rosberg took the victory after Hamilton struggled with the engine and ultimately had to retire. Hamilton would then go on to win the next 4 races, and Rosberg coming 2nd. Hamilton and Rosberg's stats during this season is quite baffling, actually. Hamilton, 11 wins, 3 second places, 3 third places, and 7 poles, never finishing off the podium except for 3 DNFs. Winning his first championship with Mercedes, 67 points clear of Rosberg. Despite Hamilton winning, Rosberg had an impressive season with 5 wins, 10 second places, and 11 poles. That is a combined 18 poles and 16 wins between the two of them out of 19 races. Mercedes had 11 1-2 finishes, and finished on the top spot in the constructors, obliterating the other teams. 701 points to the next team, Red Bull, on 405 points. The average gap from Mercedes to the other teams during the races was 23.2 seconds. And needless to say, it was a good start to the new V6 turbo era. Although Red Bull had a dominant car in 2011 and 2013, Webber could never match Vettel like Rosberg could Hamilton. And in 2015, the team continued the impressive stats. So let's hear them. Hamilton, 10 wins, 6 second places, 1 third place, and 11 poles. Winning the championship again, but this time with 3 races to go. Rosberg, 6 wins, 7 second places, 2 third places, and 7 poles, with the both of them again claiming 18 poles and a record-breaking 12 1-2 finishes. And yet again, comfortably winning the constructors miles clear of Ferrari in 2nd place. 2016, and tensions were beginning to grow within the team. Hamilton had won 2 consecutive championships over Rosberg, but this year, things would change. Rosberg won the first 4 races, with Hamilton's performances being a bit inconsistent. The tension came to a head during the Spanish Grand Prix, where the 2 teammates crashed into each other, taking them both out of the race. The 2 best friends had turned fierce rivals, and the crack in their relationship would not recover after the competitiveness they exuded over the last few years. Rosberg would go on to win 9 races, claiming 5 second places, 2 third places, and 8 poles. Hamilton, 10 wins, 3 second places, 4 third places, and 12 poles. The 2 of them finishing the last 4 races with consecutive 1-2s. 2016 was a 21-race season, and Mercedes scored 20 of the season's pole positions, with the only non-Mercedes pole being won by Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. And that sure is an insane statistic. Rosberg won the championship only 5 points ahead of Hamilton after the last race in Abu Dhabi, where Hamilton won the race and Rosberg came second. And Mercedes again winning the Constructors, this year 279 points ahead of Red Bull. Rosberg shocked the world of motorsport in December of 2016 when he announced he would be retiring after the season, having achieved his goal of becoming a world champion. Rosberg could now be added to the list of father-son duos who had won an F1 World Championship, with his dad Keke Rosberg, who won in 1982 for Williams. After Rosberg's sudden departure, Mercedes signed Finnish Williams driver Valtteribottas to drive alongside Hamilton for the 2017 season. The intense rivalry that had been between Rosberg and Hamilton was not to be repeated, and Bottas knew this. He was supposed to be the number 2 driver, supporting Hamilton and take points off the non-Mercedes drivers, a task he did very well. During the first half of the season, Ferrari started off strong, with Sebastian Vettel leading the championship for the first 12 rounds. But due to a few driver errors and overall lack of consistency, Vettel would lose the lead to Hamilton, who just sailed away with the championship, winning the title during the Mexican Grand Prix with 2 races to go. Hamilton winning 9 races, scoring 4 second places and 11 poles, and Bottas 3 wins, 6 second places, 4 third places, and 4 poles. And you know the drill by now. Mercedes won the Constructors, and this would be their 4th consecutive championship win in a row. Ferrari, together with Vettel, again challenged Hamilton for the 2018 season, with the championship lead swapping 5 times between the 2 of them. The season was dubbed the Fight for 5 as both drivers were chasing their 5th world championship. But this time, Vettel actually won the championship to Hamilton. Sorry, who am I kidding? Nope, that's not what happened. It was the same story all over again. Hamilton won the title in Mexico with 2 races to go, Mercedes yet again securing the Constructors. 2018 was not a great season for Bottas though, finishing down in 5th place in the driver standings with no wins. The 2019 season opened with Hamilton claiming pole in Australia, but Bottas taking the win. And in a surprising turn of events, some fans believed Bottas to challenge Hamilton for the title, but of course, Mercedes would not want to relive the turbulent Silver War that had happened between Hamilton and Rosberg. Throughout the season, there was no real fight for the championship. The first 5 races, the 2 teammates managed consecutive 1-2 finishes. Hamilton again continuing to dominate, winning 11 races, 4 second places, 2 third places, and 5 poles, winning the title at the United States Grand Prix with 3 races to go. Bottas really improving from last year, claiming 4 wins, 7 second places, 4 third places, and 5 poles, finishing second in the overall standings behind Hamilton. Bottas actually managed to outscore Hamilton on 5 different occasions this season, with Hamilton not retiring from a single race, which, when you think about it, is really impressive. Mercedes again, the winning constructor. The pandemic shortened the 2020 season. Hamilton even caught COVID before the penultimate round in Sakir and could not participate. Mercedes would yet again see their drivers on the top step of the podium on a regular basis, most fans at this point being able to hymn God Save the Queen by heart. Hamilton was chasing his 7th world championship, equaling with the all-time record set by Michael Schumacher. and was on the right path to break some big records, becoming the most successful F1 driver in history. 2020 would end up being a relatively easy match for Hamilton, but that should not take away from the fact that he drove superbly and rarely made any mistakes. And he had some incredible performances, like finishing the British Grand Prix with a puncture, a truly iconic visual and testament to his greatness. Hamilton won 11 races, surpassing the record for most wins, also set by Schumacher at 91 victories. This during the Portuguese Grand Prix, and also equaling Schumacher, claiming his 7th world championship with 3 races to go. After catching COVID, Mercedes got Williams driver George Russell to replace Hamilton for the Sakir Grand Prix. Russell did a stellar job and was on board to claim his maiden F1 win, but due to some uncharacteristic blunders by the team, Russell, unfortunately, ended in 9th place. Mercedes won the Constructors 254 points over Red Bull, winning a record-breaking 7 consecutive Constructors titles. Was there anyone that could really rival Hamilton? 2021, and Mercedes looks strong, but so does Red Bull. And if you want to learn more about this particular season in a bit more detail, check out my Red Bull video. There are time codes for each year in the description. Just look down and you'll find 2021 easily. This year was the first time in a while where we would see Hamilton make mistakes, and it was clear that Red Bull's Max Verstappen was a tough opponent. For the past 7 years, a Mercedes driver had won the Drivers' Championship, but Verstappen broke that streak during the final lap of the final race in Abu Dhabi. Due to the controversy of the final lap, Mercedes tried to file a formal complaint asking for the results to be overturned, making Hamilton the champion. But it was not accepted, and the result remained as is. This was a huge blow for Hamilton, having been denied a record-breaking 8th World Championship due to an interesting interpretation of FIA's own rules done by race leader Michael Masi. Despite this, Mercedes still won the Constructors' Championship, making it an insane 8 consecutive wins since 2014. With the radical new regulations rolling in for 2022, everyone was expecting Mercedes to fight at the top. With their brilliant team of engineers, confident team principal, and strong driver lineup, Russell being called up from Williams to replace Bottas, it seemed like a given that they would be in contention for the championship. But that's not what happened. Mercedes opted for an interesting interpretation of the rules and came up with a zero side pod concept, differing from the other teams. To say that they had a bad season is honestly a bit of a stretch when you look at their results, but compared to how dominating they had been, some could say it was. The team did not get on top of the porpoising, a phenomenon that occurs when air gets sucked under the car and released out the back, making the car bounce. This as a result of the Venturi channels underneath the car creating the ground effect. This would prove a very big struggle for the drivers, but especially for Hamilton, with him almost not being able to get out of his car after the race in Baku. They made some updates and changes and would by round 9 in Canada have virtually no porpoising. Russell would go on to claim his sought-after maiden win, with a superb performance during the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And Hamilton would see his first ever season in Formula 1 without a single victory. Russell finished ahead of Hamilton in the standings in 4th place, an impressive feat in his first season for the team. Mercedes finished 3rd in the Constructors, but did have a close fight for 2nd with Ferrari towards the end of the season. Mercedes' time in F1 is nothing short of astounding. Looking back to the beginning and the 2 years they were in the sport in the mid-50s, to their successful outing as an engine manufacturer, and of course, the complete dominance of the turbo hybrid era. Considering how many years they've been competing as an independent team in Formula 1, their accomplishments are incredible. After Hamilton's 2nd place and Russell's charge during the opening lap in Australia this year, maybe Mercedes can be up there, fighting at least with the Aston Martins for podiums. Seeing Hamilton and Alonso again fighting and a car performing at an almost equal level is great to see. But anyways, as of early April and after 3 rounds of the 2023 season, that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to leave a comment about what team you want to learn about next, please do. And I also want to say thank you to all the people who watched my earlier videos. It's really cool. I have a few hundred views on them now, so thank you so much for that. And until next time, later.